Welcome to RichTrybe. Let's jump right in. If you're looking for the absolute ultimate roadmap to financial freedom, you are exactly where you need to be. I'm talking to you today not just as a host, but as someone who has literally clawed their way out of the financial trenches. By the time we wrap up, you'll know exactly how to completely crush massive debt, avoid the traps everyone else falls into, and hit the specific milestones you need to reach millionaire status.
Okay, that sounds amazing, but let's be real for a second. Most of us watching are staring at mountains of student loans or just a massive crushing mortgage. It honestly feels a lot less like building wealth and way more like just trying to keep your head above water.
I totally get that. And actually, that's exactly why we aren't starting with the yacht. We're starting with the shovel. Let's look at the real starting line.
Because here is the crucial point that almost everyone completely misses. What if I told you the hardest part of becoming a millionaire isn't making your first million? It's grinding out your first $100,000.
Wait, really? Just the first 100 grand? I mean, how can anyone even focus on investing that kind of cash when they're buried under 6 figures of student loans? It just feels completely impossible.
It feels impossible because the psychological obstacle is honestly way bigger than the financial one. When you're starting with zero, or let's be honest, way less than zero, it takes an agonizingly long time to get any real traction. For the first few years, it feels like your net worth isn't even budging. But getting past that initial barrier is literally everything. Because once you cross that six-figure mark, compound interest finally steps in and starts doing the heavy lifting for you.
And I really want to validate that struggle right out of the gate. Let me throw a number at you. $470,000.
Oh, man. Let me guess, the cost of a starter home in today's crazy market?
Nope. That is the actual real-life student loan debt of an ER physician named Dr. Craig Boyle, and the story behind that number is just incredible. Dr. Boyle paid off that staggering $470,000 in exactly 5 years, and he didn't do it living alone in a van eating ramen. He did it while supporting a family of 7.
5 years with 7 people to feed? There is no way. How is that even mathematically possible unless he won the lottery?
Relentless. Absolutely relentless execution. He threw every single extra dollar at those loans. We're talking signing bonuses, holiday bonuses, moonlighting pay, unexpected raises. He consistently made massive payments and absolutely refused to take on any new debt. No car loans, no credit cards, just a mortgage and the mission. It requires a ruthless level of discipline that, frankly, most people just aren't willing to embrace.
Okay, I love the intensity, I really do. But for someone listening right now who is just feeling completely overwhelmed by it all, where is the tactical starting line? How do we even begin? You begin by fighting your way back to broke. Hitting a net worth of 0 is a massive milestone that you should actually celebrate. But to get there, you need a rock-solid foundational attack. First up, save $1,000 just for emergencies. You need to stop the bleeding when a tire blows out, right? Second, get the full match on your workplace retirement account. That is literally free money. Do not leave it on the table. Third, aggressively, and I mean aggressively, pay off high-interest credit card debt. And fourth, start using an HSA or FSA for medical expenses to shield your income from taxes. Look, it's not glamorous at all, but this is the concrete foundation you absolutely have to build first.
Fair enough. But let's say someone actually does all that. They claw their way back to 0, they start saving a bit. Is just regular saving enough to actually become a millionaire in today's economy? Simply put, no way. You have to completely break away from the average mindset. The average savings rate right now is a measly 4.6%, and it gets worse. Over a 20-year period, the average retail investor earned just a 2.6% annualized return. That doesn't even beat inflation. So what does the actual alternative look like? You need what we call the two-pronged attack. If you want to scale your wealth fast after getting out of debt, you have to save a huge chunk of your income. I'm talking 30, 40, or even 50%. And then you have to aggressively invest it for high returns. You literally cannot just budget your way to millions. You have to invest your way there.
Okay, I'm tracking with you, but I'm still a little skeptical. Even if you are saving aggressively, trying to get these massive returns using only standard index funds is going to take decades. Is there a better accelerator out there? There absolutely is, and it is the ultimate game changer for wealth. As Andrew Carnegie famously said, 90% of all millionaires become so through owning real estate. Don't get me wrong, the stock market is great, but real estate gives you 5 distinct wealth generators all at once. You get cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, massive leverage, and incredible tax benefits. Over time, the property values climb, the rents go up with inflation, and your tenants are literally paying down your loan for you.
That sounds amazing in theory, but I have to call this out.
How in the world can an average investor afford to drop a 20% down payment on rental property after rental property? They'd run out of cash after the very first house.
Right, and that is the exact trap almost every beginner falls into. That is why you have to understand the BRRRR method. B-R-R-R-R-R. This strategy lets you build a massive real estate portfolio with barely any of your own capital tied up. Step 1, you buy a distressed property under market value. Step 2, you rehab it to force the appreciation. Step 3, rent it out to a solid tenant. Step 4, and this is the absolute magic right here, you refinance the property at its new, higher value and pull your original cash right back out. And then step 5, you just repeat the whole process using that exact same money. It's a phenomenal hedge against inflation, and it literally makes your wealth explode.
Okay, but I'm going to push back on you one more time. The BRRR method still requires some initial cash to buy that first ugly house. What if a beginner literally has $0 to start with?
Well, then you get creative. Let's look at David's story. He built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio while he was actively serving in the military. He used 0% down VA loans to buy his properties. He used a strategy called house hacking, which is where you buy a multi-unit property, live in one of the units, and have your tenants entirely pay your mortgage. He even leveraged military perks like waived Amex fees and adaptive housing grants. If you don't have the capital, you have to substitute it with education, strict discipline, and pure hustle. Start a side business. Partner with someone who has the money while you do the sweat equity. There are absolutely zero excuses.
And you know, all of this brings us right back to that critical first $100,000 we were talking about earlier. Once you deploy all these aggressive strategies, getting out of debt, house hacking, scaling up, and you finally cross that six-figure mark, the entire physics of your money changes.
Is that because of compound interest?
Exactly. In the beginning, 100% of your net worth growth is just coming from the sheer sweat of your own savings. You're doing all the work. But once you hit that first $100,000 and you let it compound at, say, 7 to 10% a year, the math simply takes over. Eventually, the interest you're earning actually outpaces your own monthly contributions. The snowball starts rolling down the hill completely on its own, and your portfolio shifts from this active, daily grind into massive passive growth.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. The snowball gets huge. What does the finish line actually feel like? Does hitting that first $1 million suddenly make you happy? That is such a fascinating question, and the psychological evolution of it all is pretty wild. Reaching your first million mostly just brings relief. You realize all that intense grinding actually worked, though honestly, you don't necessarily feel rich just yet. But at 5 million, true confidence sets in. You have enough passive income to cover your life without working, and hey, a $7,000 emergency home repair doesn't even make you blink. By 10 million, you enter abundance. You can say yes to pretty much any experience, but you also kind of have to adopt stealth wealth just to avoid people constantly asking for handouts. Wow. And what about beyond that? What happens at 20 million? At 20 million, you hit peace. Interestingly enough, there's actually this intense reduction in material desires. You realize a $50,000 watch doesn't tell time any better than a $50 one. Beyond 20 million, building more wealth simply becomes a personal challenge. It's a game or an exercise in legacy, because at the end of the day, you can only sleep in one bed at a time.
Now, before we hit the absolute most important and honestly maybe the most sobering insight of this entire roadmap, I need you to do something for us. If this deep dive is helping you see your path clearly, subscribe to RichTrybe channel. Like, comment, and share. It takes just a second and it really helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Which brings us to our final section, purpose beyond the money. What happens when life actually derails your plans?
Right, exactly. We've laid out this perfect mathematical roadmap, but life doesn't always care about our math, does it? What happens if there's a massive market crash, or a terrible lawsuit, or a sudden severe health crisis that hits before you even reach your first million?
That is the reality check we all absolutely need. Let me share the story of Dr. Brian Jebsen. He followed these principles perfectly. He paid off his debt, bought an investment property, lived super frugally. Then, completely out of nowhere, he faced a devastating brain tumor diagnosis that forced an early, unplanned medical retirement.
Oh, wow.
So, did his entire financial plan just collapse? Actually, no, it didn't collapse, but it completely changed his definition of the finish line. Because he had already eliminated his bad debt, protected his assets, and built multiple streams of income early on, his family survived the crisis financially. But it proved a huge point. At the end of the day, true wealth is not the number on a screen. True wealth is resilience. It's your ability to pivot. It's prioritizing your time, your health, your relationships, and having a purpose entirely beyond the money. Because if you neglect your spouse, your kids, or your health just to hit a $5 million net worth, you haven't won. You've lost.
That really puts the whole two-pronged attack and the real estate hustle into perspective, doesn't it? The money is really just a tool to protect what actually matters.
Precisely. Wealth is built on thousands of micro-decisions. It's every $100 you invest instead of spend. It's every hour you spend learning instead of just consuming content. But without a why, that drive is going to fade. So I want to leave you with this provocative question as we wrap up. What is your ultimate purpose for building wealth? Are you just chasing a high score on a spreadsheet, or are you building a fortress surrounding your family and your legacy? Answer that for yourself, and then take your very first intentional step today.